just getting started. Come on up to the table. Matt, can you hear us okay?
I'll go ahead.
It just got pretty quiet. Let me see.
It just got pretty quiet. Our mics are flashing, that's probably why. They might hopefully not be dead.
It's flashing red. That's
It is, I
usually
think
not a
it's-
good sign. His is green.
But it's flashing. It's usually the
Solid
Solid.
green.
You there, Matt? Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better. I can hear Justin pretty good.
Okay, we'll just pass the mic around. We've got one working mic.
Or speak
Yeah,
loudly.
You're a long ways away,
Okay.
but it's all good.
Let me share the screen here and we will jump into this discussion here. So we've received an application for project management to discuss this parcel.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
That is
Yeah,
correct.
Correct.
Okay.
It's the old tax ID, but yes.
Okay. So there's no information on it. Currently, it's typical when a sale is taken place. So we're familiar with the approximate acreage, and we've had previous discussions on this. So let's just jump into what kind of ideas you've got and answer as many questions as we can.
Terrific. And we were just here a month ago with the Thornock property, so we're happy to see you again. Thanks for taking the time. We thought we would just begin more or less like we did last time, other than there were already some initial concepts done and all of that we talked a little bit about. But we'd love to just hear a little bit about what you know about this piece, and we know there's been some development around it, and again to have the conversation around, ideally if you were to wave your magic wand, what are some of the things the city would like to see there before we start down the path of putting together more of what we'd like to do.
And I guess specifically is, you guys obviously put a mixed use overlay on this property and had some reasoning for doing that. So maybe you can give us some ideas and background about that.
Perfect.
Sure.
Perfect,
Yeah, let's
perfect.
start there. Let me just stop sharing momentarily to jump into our code and the city
Beautiful.
the city maps so that we can look at how that discussion came about. So the history there with the mixed use zones in general. Sorry, Matt, I left you out here, but you know all of this because you've been along the journey as we've walked.
Yeah, no problem.
So in 2019, the city adopted a new general plan. At the time, there's been a lot of moderate income housing discussions. Then there's subsequently been state legislation passed to
Which we talked about a little bit
yes,
a month
to
ago. Right.
mandate moderate income housing needs. And so when we were doing our 2018, 2019 general plan, we identified areas in the city that we felt were eligible for mixed use developments at that time. We actually had a lot more areas on our future land use map identified for potential projects or the overlay, and it was reduced.
Okay.
During the public process as the state law, that's why you have public hearings, you receive public input, you modify your plan
Yep.
until you finally agree on what you want to adopt. That's pretty much the process. So this area was identified because of its unique connection to already established, sorry to make you dizzy there, commercial on the south end. It's also at a very unique corridor connector
It
with
is.
Larson Lane and Highway 89.
Yeah.
It's within a reasonable proximity to Walmart, and where maybe we could call it our commercial hub. That's where most of our commercial development is, and so we identified that as being a potential mixed use. What makes this parcel a little bit unique is that it's a residential under zone, if you want to
Yeah.
call it. And so it allows a lot of flexibility as far as maintaining a residential atmosphere, but we also recognize that there are few areas in our city that have enough density to meet the moderate income housing. And particularly, I think it was wise, kudos to the city council members that looked at this area and identified it, because now as things have changed in the last 3 or 4 years, we have less and less moderate income housing in our city.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the history there. Is that helpful? If you have more specific questions, I'm happy to give you even more detail, but that's pretty much where the history of why that is identified. There's a school there, so we knew it wouldn't probably go all commercial. There's still some agricultural land. There's the Weber County Posse grounds that'll remain agricultural in its nature and purpose. So the mixed use made sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So mixed use, or with the mixed use, are you thinking residential, obviously, and kind of that residential feel, but are you also thinking either something commercial or something industrial could go in there along with that, or really more residential is what you're...
Yeah, residential is the underlying zone. So the way the mixed use ordinance works is whatever zoning the property has before the mixed use overlay comes is the governing subzone. So our mixed use ordinance, excuse me, I'm losing my cursor. So if we go into our municipal code, I can identify the 3 subzones for you, and then you can kind of get a better idea of how this one plays out.
Yep. Perfect. There you go.
So in our subzoning for mixed use, we have the large project, which is not eligible for because that's for projects over 100 acres. We know that's not the case here. The commercial would be the other subzone, which is what we talked about the last project management meeting with the parcels that you were considering on Washington Boulevard.
Which we're working toward.
This actually falls under the 3rd subzone, which is a residential element. So this is what the city's looking at meeting for a proposed development there. So it is designed for residential with amenities. What those amenities look like are kind of open.
We're guessing that's similar to the conversation we had a month ago, whether it's pickleball courts or some kind of a Bowery or barbecue pits, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, that would serve that community, that subdivision, that neighborhood.
Yep.
What questions do you have about this? Because we had looked at this and spent some time on it.
So the one thing that's not clear to me in the mixed use zoning is the density factors. So I don't see anything that I could see in the code that specify what the density is supposed to be, what the lot sizes are supposed to be. Is that pretty open-ended then?
It's a negotiation process between. So what we do with our mixed use projects, we form a committee for this would be one of our smaller projects. We assign a planning commissioner, a city council member, our city engineer, the public works director, myself, and a committee that meets with the developer. We start to have meetings as frequently or infrequently as needed for the project. So on our Ben Lomond mixed use development, when we were negotiating that development agreement, we were meeting weekly at certain time frames.
And about how large was that one?
It's 130 acres.
So that would be in your
that was the
large,
one for our large project,
where
the golf course is. And so we meet and negotiate the agreement, and the density becomes identified in that agreement, and then as the development agreement is adopted by the city council, that becomes the code. That becomes the setbacks. That becomes the road width.
I like that
So
process.
it kind of comes in backwards from a regular development.
Right. Here's
once
the zoning.
Once we've given you
that.
the density and the zoning and the setbacks and the road widths, the engineering has to kind of come after.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's, for me, it's backwards.
Yeah.
Because I want to see all the engineering up front and know everything. That's,
Right.
It's all
but-
going to work. Yeah, this is how it's going to work.
But
Yeah.
that's not how we do our mixed use. So
Okay.
it kind of is beneficial to you guys. It's a lot of give and take on both parties.
Yeah.
You know, the more amenities or the more commercial, the more driving factors for the city.
Yeah.
You know, because commercial's tax base, tax revenue, you know, helps us out. The more density we've been lenient to kind of give
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That combination of commercial and or amenities.
amenities.
Yeah, and of course, the smaller the piece, the less opportunity that is. But I love that it's a negotiation process, and let's just talk about it and see what if some what ifs.
I suppose I wouldn't call it risk, but the negative impact on developers in that process is that you don't have any assurance until the development agreement is adopted.
That's right.
So there's oftentimes a lot of effort put in on the development side.
Right.
And as far as the speed of the project, you still have to come back through our subdivision process
Right.
and meet our city code, aligning with that master development agreement to get approvals.
Right.
So once the development agreement's adopted, that doesn't necessarily mean you can take a shovel and dig. You still have
Right.
to do all the
You
engineering.
go through all of the entitlement.
and then the
process.
Yeah, exactly, the
Yeah.
entitlement process.
Okay, that makes perfect sense, and that seems very reasonable. For a piece of land this size, assuming that relatively quickly we can come to agreement with the city, we're not too difficult to deal with, I don't think.
We try
most
not
of
to
the
be.
time. On average, how long does the entitlement process take? And I know it's probably a range, so maybe
Yeah.
what
So
does the range
We
look
have
like?
a similar project that's further up on Highway 89, and it was about an 8-month negotiation process. Until the development agreement was
8 months to
8
get
months
to a
to get to
development
a
agreement.
development agreement.
And about how large was that one?
It was probably comparable, seven
You're talking Copperwood.
Copperwoods.
Okay.
But they were pretty quick with their design because they'd already knew exactly what they wanted. It's very
Yes.
much.
And it still took 8 months to get
I
to
live here, work here.
that point.
So it
So,
was.
to Justin's point, they had piggybacked off of previous discussions. I would say similar. You've been
Yeah.
privy to some of the concept plans that were
We have, and that were
and so you
discussed a
kind of
couple
are
of years
getting
ago.
getting a head start on it. That's similar.
Yeah.
This had a little bit of the same thing. It was a different developer, but they took all the feedback that was
Yeah.
received from the city, and when they put their plan together, they literally lined it out the way
Yeah.
all that feedback had come from the city, and so.
So that was very helpful to you, that
The golf
they had
course
done it.
was 18 months to 2-year negotiation.
Makes
because
sense.
it was
And then they're going on another year and a half of engineering and
Yeah.
approvals of outside agencies, which is very tough.
Yeah.
You will not have that.
right.
Right, wouldn't have any of that, and so what would you say would be the fastest we could possibly get through that initial agreement phase? If we do everything we're asking.
I'm going to throw out their 8 months because they pretty much had a lot of information up front before they started.
Yeah.
So our negotiation process was they met the 50% requirement for the commercial.
Mm-hmm.
They outlined the stormwater issues. They identified the road connections. I mean, they
So they
really
did.
came to the table.
They did their homework. Yeah.
Yes, they
Yeah.
came to the table prepared to present something that
Yeah.
was very little changes
Yeah.
in the long run.
Yeah.
So depending on how quickly, that was during a busy season too, I should say though.
Yeah.
That was
Lots going on.
when there was a lot of stuff going on, it was hard to get answers because everybody was really busy. So
Yeah.
I mean, we've slowed a bit here. I'm sure.
Yeah,
you
and we see it
probably felt that
everywhere.
in-
Yeah.
in So I don't want to tie it, but if you want to, I can only base it on that.
That's all we're asking is just
So I'd say
just to get a
6 to
feel
8
for that.
months.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair in terms of
And that works in times of our, what we were kind of anticipating anyway.
well, but then we begin the entitlement process.
Right, right.
So we're talking 6 to 8 months before we really even get into entitlement. And so kind of what's your range
Again,
there for a project like this from the
the
time we have
entitlement
agreement?
on the other project was right around 4 to 6 months.
Okay, so that's
But
relatively
again-
quick.
Again, they knew exactly what they had, what they would. We didn't have outside agencies as UDOT that we had to wait for.
Right,
anything
which
like
I don't
that.
think we're gonna have a whole lot of
No,
that here
because
either.
your access is already there
Yeah.
on 1100, and that's a city road. And
Yeah,
so I mean, just by time frames,
Mhm.
because of the way our city meetings work,
yeah.
the fastest we could ever do it is 3 months.
That I was gonna say usually 4 months between
Yeah,
engineering
the
designs.
only
and-
reason we can do 3 months is if the second meeting, so you get preliminary acceptance through city council,
Mm-hmm.
and then the next night we can roll it right over into final acceptance through planning commission.
Oh, awesome.
And that's if you had
If you are-
every
every-
condition met
every
before
condition
you
met.
even went to the city
City
council
council.
for preliminary,
Yeah.
essentially.
So I mean, again, it's just how
Mm-hmm.
fast you guys want to push on that process.
Right,
As long as you meet our deadlines of 25 days before city council on your
Right.
preliminary to submit us the plans so we can do our reviews, it's.
yeah. Do you see anything, this is really helpful, by the way, do you see anything here, when we met last month, one of the challenges is sewer lines to 700 and needing to pick up some property there to get through, and then the brown piece right next door
Yeah.
to line up. So we've been working on that. Do you see anything like that here that concerns you?
All the utilities, I believe, are stubbed in off of 1100
Right at that
Yes.
at
entrance.
that entrance.
Wonderful.
So you would just,
Yeah.
as long as the grades work for the sewer to sewer right out.
Yeah.
Again,
Wonderful.
I wasn't here when 1100 was reconstructed and those were brought in, so I don't know the exact grades.
Okay.
We could pop them out.
Matt, I was going to say Matt could maybe.
Matt can't hear anything.
Oh.
Mike died.
Oh,
We've left him in the dark all week.
it's a Monday all
I
over
think
again.
he's just even stepped off.
Yeah,
Okay.
it looks like he's
Yeah.
dropped off.
So, but I mean, that's all information I can get you pretty quick. But I, with knowing kind of that area, I'm pretty sure we've got plenty of fall. I mean,
Okay.
so it's just
So the sewer would go out to 1100 then?
1100 and
Most likely,
out to,
yeah.
out to 89 and then down through our system.
Okay.
So, excuse me, is there, I can't remember what the requirements are, whether it's just a verbal agreement or something about the road going into Greenwood.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Is that
Jenny,
your-
and Jenny cleared that with me. So we've got to provide, so if I'm understanding this correctly, we've got to provide a road coming into here.
Yes,
Somewhere to
A
we
stub
were
to
aware of
the
that. yeah.
Property.
Okay.
Somewhere along that property, whatever you negotiate with that property owner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and that'll kill two birds because Doug's is 1080,
Okay.
and that would probably make him pretty happy.
Yeah, and obviously we're going to have
and
discussions with
The,
And we-
the property
other
owners.
property
and we
owners.
will never complain about Wahlen Way coming in and connecting either.
Yeah,
You
it's
would
an
not complain about
it's
that.
an
Okay, make a
expectation
note of
that
that.
It
it
is an
would-
expectation.
Yeah, that it
that's
would
why
connect
it's-
there. That's why it's stubbed.
It's still stubbed. Just, traffic patterns and keep traffic flowing through those areas.
Makes
Even though
perfect
they're
sense.
mostly residential and very low traffic anyways.
Yeah. But
Helps us
ideally,
with snow plowing, it helps
oh,
us. with
certainly.
Or, yeah.
Well, emergency vehicle
Emergency
access,
vehicle
all of
access,
that.
Yeah.
And if you anticipated negotiating more than 30 units, the
Yes.
fire code would require you to
Require
have
two
two
access.
access points.
Okay.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that really brings up the next question, because in some of the preliminary designs we saw, there were kind of in the neighborhood of 28 to 31 units. And I guess the next question is, just given what you know about that surrounding area and what the community would absorb, we're really loving concepts that include, and we're doing this in other communities now. Townhomes are just becoming so popular and affordable for families, especially first-time homeowners. Patio homes, and even in some cases, if it works, even apartment complexes that could be a mixture between kind of those three. So, would you say? I mean, would it even be a possibility of considering any apartments there, or is that just not something that you're looking for?
It totally comes
Because that's all rental versus selling and all of that.
It all comes with what kind of you guys bring to the table as what's beneficial.
What
for
are
the city.
the amenities and the
And
beneficial
what
of the city?
the committee at that point kind of,
Okay.
hey, this,
Yeah.
the pros of this versus the cons of this.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. But what's the definition of more affordable housing, and how does
Absolutely,
that?
and we're hoping to get a little more clarification on those with this new legislative session. But until then, we have a high focus on providing what is moderate income housing anymore. But
Yeah, and that every city we talk to has a little different. I mean, you're figuring it out, right? What
Yes,
is the
we are.
definition? What qualifies for that without having to just fill the whole city with apartment?
Yes. So if you are considering something like that, I would highly suggest that you consider the impact to the neighboring and buffer
Yep.
the existing with like to like or similar to similar. And if you had enough space to make that happen and
Right.
still provide amenities and things like that, that would be our best negotiation
That's helpful.
conversation.
Yeah, and-
That's from our experiences of our other projects. Even when the public didn't love the idea that higher density housing, when we were able to pull it away from the existing and have buffering between it
Yeah.
and explain the impact and the challenges the city's facing,
Yeah.
they settle down. And
Right, when they
just want to
understand
know.
what the city's up
Absolutely.
against. Yeah.
They just want to know.
But I could see that, some buffering along this
We
side.
we do have a height requirement, so it won't be more than a 4-story building.
No more than a 4-story. Yeah, I wouldn't anticipate anything here that would be
Right.
Yeah.
looking at anything, probably not above 3.
Yeah. 'Cause
But that's good to
That's
know.
a small issue we're having with the golf course on.
Oh, really?
Oh, interesting.
So,
Not because they want to do more than a 4-story. They're doing a 4-story, but then they're talking about doing a rooftop area.
On top of that, so then, yeah.
With having the safety rails and all that, it puts them a little above the 40.
Above that,
And we are in Northview Fire District, and they can't service a building that's
that tall, yeah.
They don't have a
Interesting.
truck big enough to service that.
So I've got a question. So based on this area and the development that's already existing, you would consider apartments there if it was part of our plan, and it.
I'm not going to say no based on what I know the state's legislation is. I mean,
Yeah.
are we going to have a tougher fight for that? Yes. If
That's what I'm
we
hearing.
wanna
It's
have an
not off
honest
the table, but it's a
right.
lot tougher.
It's going to be
It'd be tougher for the
certainly
residents.
a
for sure.
patio home is going to be your easiest negotiation.
Yeah,
Okay.
Apartments it's going to be drawn
It's on
out
that.
a little bit longer because it's going to be, but for us to say no, that's what the negotiation process is for.
yeah.
Is for you to design some concept you feel brings beauty and resources to the surrounding community so that they accept that there's going to be newness in
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
Okay. So it's an easier sell for townhomes as well then?
townhomes. So if you want me to rank, I'd say patio homes 1, townhomes 2, apartments 3,
Okay,
based on feedback received last night at a public hearing.
okay.
That's great to have that recent, because that's what we've seen in most communities. Actually, quarter acre lots is what they would prefer, and then it,
Single family homes is always,
yeah.
And you're benefiting because this is already in our
That's-
mixed use overlay.
Right.
So we're not
That's
having
exactly
to.
right. That's what pushed us over the edge to even make the offer, is having a mixed use overlay.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
So, a couple of questions specific to the property. Obviously, we've got the stream, or the little ditch that runs through there. So, obviously, we've got to maintain that. There is also.
so that is not a ditch.
Oh, it isn't?
It's a creek.
It is a creek, and it will be.
So, is it seasonal or is it year round?
No, it's year round, and it will be part of the floodplain.
Yeah,
Okay.
I noticed there's a floodplain on the front.
And
part of
that,
the
so we
property.
will
Okay.
have to look
I was
at,
just going to pull up the flood map.
whatever we can to mitigate
Right.
that.
Yeah, because we believe on that top part of the property, that is floodplain right
Yes,
through there, right?
It's Dixon Creek.
Okay,
It comes
Dixon
off,
Creek.
it comes from the highway, runs to a regional detention basin, and then back out through the Wahlen property, is what we called it.
This will be really helpful to.
So it will fall under the floodplain. Right now,
Lost on the floodplain map.
Matt Robertson and myself are kind of working hand in hand as the city's floodplain managers.
Mm-hmm.
We have development going up on the highway that has already gone in and submitted for a CLOMA and a stream alteration permit, and done all their due diligence to get that up higher addressed. And then what we would love to see from the city standpoint is that if we got into it and got it engineered right, that we could just pipe the whole thing
That would be your preference.
with a big enough pipe. The more open channels and the more open streams we have, yes, there's some beautification that happens, but it tends to get neglected more than it gets taken care of.
Yeah.
And then it causes bigger issues for the city, like this last week. We've had nothing but
Oh,
flooding.
this week, yeah, with all the rain.
Yeah, it's a good.
So if you're
good
thinking
test
about a
run.
property, this week is a great week to go take a look.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then you'll know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good point. So what did you? So you're showing.
This is the FEMA floodplain map.
There you go.
Hi.
So where does that creek then? Can you zoom in a little bit on that,
Sure.
Jenny?
It has to refresh, so
Yeah.
just bear with me.
Yeah, it takes a minute, I know. So the creek now, so it comes across there and then.
shows the flood zone. and
There's the flood zone.
The map isn't, the flood zone map isn't really the creek. The creek kind of
The
comes.
creek comes
and it-
below that. Yeah.
And
Right.
it kind of wraps around and then wraps down kind of crazy through here and back through
I think
these
it goes back
properties
up
and
and
then
then
across
down.
the highway. and
Oh, so
down.
that's it going up then?
I think it.
So it comes
loops
down and then
here
up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
It does a lot of weird
Mm-hmm.
meandering.
It
So,
does its own
so
thing.
we'd probably have to figure out, well, we'd get a state stream alteration permit and get with FEMA and find out the actual size of pipe we would need to pipe it. And then we could kind of straighten it out and do a piping system.
Yeah, so if we closed it in, like you're saying then, couldn't we tie it in to the floodplain itself? So could we do a reroute here and then come over
We
and?
could, but we could also, at that point.
I guess I
Touch
shouldn't
screen.
touch the screen.
That's right. Don't
But
touch.
but at that point, also, we could probably, where the floodplain is now in a pipe,
Mhm.
we could really minimize the size of the floodplain.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's the.
That's what I'm thinking, because,
That's the Clomar
because
with
if we
the
could tie it in
FEMA.
with this, reroute it from
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
because since it comes up here anyway, we could just come right across here and then down and tie it in
Yeah.
and minimize that area.
And our code states no building in the floodplain,
Right.
which is a really sensitive topic because if you ask a FEMA definition of building, it is any man-made structure. It doesn't even care if it's a pipe.
Wow.
Is our code saying that, or are we saying actual livable
Right, buildings.
building, habitable building? So that's where we have some discussion. And again, if we can get that in a pipe and minimize that floodplain down to nothing, all you have to do is put a dedicated easement over that for
Yeah.
city maintenance, and we can, build.
That's really helpful.
And could
to
you
know.
use that, once it's piped, could you use that portion for the pickleball court, for the park, or part of your open space?
Open space,
Right.
yes.
So you could
Very much
dedicate-
so.
I
Your-
believe that we have areas identified under the roadway.
Yes, we would prefer that maintains as much open space.
Yeah.
So that if there is a problem, we have room to get in there.
You can work.
Right.
Yeah,
It's piped under 1100 North.
It's piped
currently.
under 1100.
Okay.
makes sense.
So it would probably
Through
just
our
be
pocket.
matching up the same size. I think it's a 36-inch culvert.
I think I've seen it because it's right past the barn.
Yeah. It may not be quite that big because it just comes out of a detention basin, but it's quite the size of pipe.
So
Where's
probably
the-
not bigger than that, and maybe smaller.
Where's the retention basin?
So if, Jenny,
You want to go back to our GeoGizmo? Oh, up.
yes,
Further up.
Oh, and this. Here we go.
So zoom. So right here. This
Oh, okay.
And we've got a development coming in right here, that creek actually runs right here, along here, and you can see it, the creek
Oh, there's
really
the
well right
creek.
here.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're actually doing this whole development, and they're gonna change, as you can see, the floodplain map does not follow the creek.
Wow,
Right.
not at all. Yeah.
So
Which is interesting.
it's just because the way,
They didn't draw it close enough.
yeah. And as they put it on the map, and as, these under maps get better defined,
Yeah.
they can't adjust as easily as. But anyways, so yeah, that right there, there is a little bit of floodplain in that property that will have to be addressed.
Okay.
You had one other question?
So let us just kind of throw an idea out there. Jenny, could you go back to the GeoGizmo?
Sure.
Do you have any other utility questions possibly?
I think we're covered with that because you said that we're stubbed in already. So we're stubbed in already with sewer, water, culinary.
Power.
So is culinary.
and secondary. Pine View is in that area.
Yeah.
Oh, Pineview is.
Yeah, because they're on the other side of.
So who are the water shares with?
Costly Ditch.
Okay.
So you would have to hand those to,
73
you would have to give
shares.
those
Right.
to Pine View.
Yep.
Oh, got it.
And they would then, if you've got enough, they service, they do their engineered drawings and hand them to you guys, and
And is culinary Bona Vista?
yes.
And then, so we've got water, culinary and secondary, we've got sewer,
Stormwater.
storm drain. And so, and I'm guessing power is coming off of 1100 as well? Okay. I think that's all.
You need to go.
Yeah, I've got a flight. I'm headed to Arizona for a few days.
Oh, good for you. Go,
Trying to
go
get
suck
some
up some
sunshine
heat.
out
All
of-
right.
Out of the rain.
Awesome.
We had him
Have fun.
working a few hours the last couple of days.
Yeah. Enjoy.
Put in a few hours, so thank you guys.
Thank you very
See
much.
you, see you soon.
So conceptually, can we talk about buffers?
Sure.
So obviously 1100 doesn't get a ton of traffic, but it does get there are some cars that go through there. So what we were thinking is that we would do probably, what we would like to see is maybe some on the north side of the property, maybe the little higher density as a buffer.
Fronting 1100.
Fronting 1100, and then go to a lower density as we get into the property. I don't know what your thoughts are, Lane, but
Well, I'm
think-
still,
I think
there's
that-
so much that can be done here that I really don't want to cement in the minds of any of us
Yeah.
that this is
what you have to do.
that's exactly right, because we've talked about the what ifs. What could we do here? How might this work? What did the original owners?
But I'm guessing
put
from
together?
the sounds of our discussion, it sounds
Yeah.
like apartments is going to be a hard sell.
Yeah,
Yes, it will.
possible but tough.
So I think the way that I'm thinking this property ought to come together is a mix of townhomes and patio homes. And it sounds like that would be a much easier sell.
Yeah. And especially given the density
Of your surrounding neighbors.
around.
Yeah.
All of the properties to the south and west are still agricultural properties.
Okay.
The charter school is it's a residential zone, RE15,
Yeah.
and then that's the same as the current zoning on this parcel.
Okay.
So yeah, the surrounding zones will impact the negotiation process as well. But you do have R110 across 1100 North. So to your point, keeping the density, whether the committee considers that similar enough, depends.
Yeah.
We do have a 5-unit limit
On townhomes.
townhomes.
Yeah, I don't like to go above
Yeah.
5 anyways.
Oh, on the link.
on the connections on units.
Yeah.
So before a space is required. So just all those things I believe are, I don't know if the specifics. So the history there is we repealed any ordinances in the early 2000s that allowed any multifamily development in the city, and we sat with no outside of already approved zoning that was
Yeah.
grandfathered in. We didn't have any development with multifamily until we revisited mixed use.
Right.
So our standards, so if you have any question on multifamily standards, just reach out. I can
Okay.
find what we've governed in the past with it to use as a future guide for
Yeah, so
our
it's probably
discussions.
worth having a conversation or two, but I think you're right, the likelihood of that here.
Having that much
Being-
space to do that many
Yeah.
probably won't impact your project if you're trying to combine.
Mhm.
Okay.
I don't have any other, I mean, this has been super helpful.
Yeah, it has been
Anything
good.
else that comes to mind before we let them get back at preparing for the legislative sessions and all the other stuff? This is really good. Gives us a chance now to, Sue represents the sellers, by the
Yeah,
way.
I'm
Okay.
Wahlen's agent.
Yeah. I don't have anything else. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
We will be back in touch very soon on both
Sounds-
of these projects.
On both
We look forward
projects.
to it.
All right. Awesome. Thank
So
you.
I do just have one other question, just kind of so more relating to our other project.
Sure.
That has a mixed use overlay. In fact, can you go down to
To the other overlay or that property?
the Larson Lane property?
It's not far.
No.
So my question is, so we're negotiating with sellers right now or landowners right now. Obviously, we have this piece. Very good chance we're going to pick up some along Washington. We're in negotiation with residents there. Good chance we're going to pick up a couple of parcels down on 700 North. So the mixed use overlay then is just on the commercial side. But if we wanted to, is there a chance that we could adopt that mixed use overlay onto the parcel that we already own, which is RE15, or any pieces that we pick up here to the south? So these are not zoned. The ones on 700 North are not zoned commercial in your master plan, correct?
No, it's all, yeah.
No.
So how does that work? My question is, how does that work where we have residential and commercial properties if we're applying a mixed use overlay on the commercial properties?
So your your first question was, could they be eligible for it? And yes, you can apply to the city to request that the general plan map be amended,
Okay.
as well as the current zoning map. They're two different steps. But you can apply for that. We hold a public hearing. It's up to the planning commissioners to recommend to city council, and by ordinance, they would make that change to the future land use map, which is the overlay map, is one of those.
So that's a
So it's the same
possibility.
process
That's an option. Yeah.
that you could include those parcels. Now, they're not, the 700 North properties are not currently, they are RE15, it looks like, in our current zoning map. And you'll see the line here that we've identified as commercial.
Yeah.
And I think when we spoke on the phone, maybe, I can't remember, we've had a variety of discussions, but at the same time we were identifying other mixed use areas in the city, we had identified this whole triangular piece as commercial, and because of the public outcry,
Pushback,
we
yeah.
pushed it.
Mm-hmm.
It looks a lot different than the proposal
Yeah.
based on that. But again, to the mayor's point, at some of our other or project management meetings, we have a totally different council. We have a new elected planning commission chair last night out of our planning commission. We have new faces on there.
Yeah.
It's hard for us. All we have data-wise is historic.
That's right.
But that changes with the administration, it changes with the commissioners and the city council members. We have a municipal election next year. So I don't want to give you false hope,
Yeah.
but I also don't want to,
No, it's perfect. We're just,
Yeah.
that's all we can ask is, here's our best
yes,
guess
you
based on
absolutely
history.
could. We have another project that the parcel was split, and part of the mixed use overlay map came about halfway across the parcel, and the back parcel wasn't. Well, the city allowed that because
Because it was
the
all one
parcel
parcel.
was the same. This is a little
Yeah, they're
different.
different parcels.
Separate parcels, so you're asking a different question, right, to the public, because that made sense to tell a property owner, well, you can only do this on half your property. We don't necessarily have a legal right to do that.
Yeah.
So if they want to come in and develop their parcel, then we need to negotiate that development with them under the laws of the city. And we didn't want to find ourselves in a battle where
Perfect. Makes
we
sense.
didn't need it. And they also donated a majority of the Dixon Creek that's higher up on the floodplain that Justin was identifying. That area, they donated a large portion of this area
Like
as
for
a
a park. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So it buffers all of the existing homes there by a park.
Perfect.
To
Yeah.
the east.
Sounds like a great negotiation, and it made sense for everybody.
Okay.
All right. Should we let
Perfect.
them get back to their
Is that-
day?
I think
Okay.
that's all I have.
Thank
Do
you.
you have any questions for our fire marshal? He's here now. Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Yep.
Thanks for
They
having me.
just shared with us that if you get above 30 units, we got to make sure to have
Yeah,
two.
two access points.
Yeah.
Also, it's a cul-de-sac length, so I'm guessing you're going to tie into 1100.
That's,
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that alleviates that concern.
Okay. Wonderful.
So as long as we have, so you're definitely looking for multiple access points. So we got to tie into Wahlen and 1100.
Yeah.
Yep.
Loop it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Wahlen, once you start tying onto that, I think you'll be over the cul-de-sac length. I can't remember what Harrisville's limit is.
600 feet.
Okay.
And, I mean, fire code's the same. It's in the same ballpark, so.
So you'll just want to make sure any roads that you
Mm-hmm.
incorporate in there are either connected, or a cul-de-sac can't be longer than 600 feet,
Okay.
which is pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay.
Perfect. All right.
No, I think that's it. And then in terms of height, we talked earlier about height of the buildings. So
Yeah, we're-
nothing above four stories.
yeah.
Whatever the city standard is, we're good with.
Oh, are you? Okay. Okay. There
So
you go.
you wouldn't have a problem with a 4-story
Nope.
if we decided to do that.
Okay, that's good to know.
I don't know that we'll do that.
I
but-
was going to say it's not likely, but at least
yeah,
we
not
know.
likely on that parcel, but
But maybe
Wonderful.
on your other projects, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Potentially on the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Outstanding. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Appreciate
so
your time.
much.
Absolutely.
Sue,